Search in video. Welcome to my channel. He doesn't chase. He doesn't brag. And yet, she can't stop watching. The older Sigma male doesn't make noise, but somehow his silence speaks volumes. While the modern world buzzes with attention-seeking theatrics, men showcasing abs, cars, luxury watches, and motivational quotes, he remains still. He doesn't play the social media game. He's not in a race for likes, followers, or approval. And ironically, that detachment becomes thievery thing that captures the attention of younger women. You see, human psychology leans toward mystery. When CYTH or someone doesn't beg to be seen, it creates curiosity. The Sigma male's refusal to compete for validation, a world that worships attention, sets him apart. His self-sufficiency, his scum, and his quiet dominance act as a gravitational pull in any environment hinders. But what younger women goes beyond the surface, this Sigma's presence hints at something deeper: wisdom, emotional control, and life experience. Unlike younger men who are still proving themselves, the older Sigma has already walked through fire and come out forged. He doesn't react. He observes. He doesn't chase, he cases. That stability, that depth becomes intoxicating to those still navigating the chaos of youthful relationship studies and evolutionary OPSA suggests that women are often drawn to traits signaling security, leadership, and confidence. Traits the Sigma radiates effortlessly, and one: quiet confidence, not loud egoics, not rehearsed. He's not trying to seduce anyone. His charisma isn't scripted. It's earned. In a world addicted to stimulation, his stillness becomes a novelty. And younger women, consciously or not, begin to lean toward that quiet, unmoved presence. This video isn't about manipulation. It's not a how-to on being magnetic. It's a mirror held up to the men Hollow on their own terms, unaware their authenticity is their greatest signal. Welcome to the Enigma. Welcome you to the mind of the older Sigma. Let's step into his world. Number 1 is ICE, emotional control. Younger women today live in a hyper-connected world where emotions swing fast and validation often hinges on the fleeting approval of social media. A single post can bring in hundreds of likes one moment and befougen the next. This constant loop of external affirmation create emotional highs and lows, pushing man to a cycle of anxiety, comparison, and attention seeking. In this whirlwind of stimulation, the Sigma male stands out. Not because he shouts to be seen, but he doesn't. His power lies in restraint. While others overreact or overshare, the Sigma observes. He doesn't trust to prove himself or chase trends. Instead, he moves through life with calculated stillness, choosing responsive reactions. For younger women who were used to emotional turbulence and the performative nature of modern relationships, this quiet confidence feels like a grounding force. It's not coldness, it's control. As the ability to be calm when everyone else is sparrowing, and that calm presence isn't just attractive. It's magnetic towards a sense of psychological safety. Something often missing and fast pocket-on driven Interactions. Neuroscience even backs us up. Humans biologically drawn to those who help regulate their nervous systems. In other words, a steady presence makes us feel safer, more balanced, and more secure. The Sigma male becomes that anchor. He does not feed into drama or demand constant reassurance. Instead, he offers some emotional consistency that makes him not only mysterious, but also refreshing. Hayes, the rare man who isn't trying to impress. He's simply being. And in a world saturated with noise, that silence too, detached independence speaks louder than any words. Younger women often tired of superficial charmed performative masculinity are rest subconsciously drawn to high authenticity. He represents what so many seek but rarely find. And a man who'd sought need external validation to feel powerful. He already knows who he is, and that self-possession becomes his most attractive trait. The Sigma male is intriguing to be the hero in someone else's story. He's simply walking his own path. That unshakable independence makes women want to walk alongside him. Stability in a storm, a lighthouse in the cows, and while others burn bright and fast, the Sigma glows with quiet intensity, the kind that lasts. Number 2, his focus purpose. He's not drifting. He's not scrolling through life. He wakes up with a mission, not at distraction. That's the quiet power of a Sigma male. The man who operates with surgical focus while the world swims in a culture overwhelmed by dopamine hits and digital escapism. Mano doesn't chase the next trend, but instead chases purpose. Stands out. His teas aren't consumed by scrolling damnedly through other people's lives. They're built on intent, goals, and grit. And that intensity, that laser-like concentration, it doesn't just make him productive. It makes him magnetic. Creates a kind of mystery, psychological gravity that draws others in, especially women. They can sense when a man isn't seeking external validation, and that's what makes her curious. What drives him? Where is he going? Why does he seem so complete? Even in solitude, the answer lies in one core trait: internal direction. Sigma Mollies don't wait for a green light from society, peers, or partners. They move with their own compass. Psychologically, the self-determinational, with what researchers call an internal locus of control. The belief that one's life is shaped by personal destinies rather than outside forces. This trait has been linked to higher confidence, better emotional regulation, and long-term success. But here's the twist. He doesn't announce it. There are no motivational quotes cluttering his feed. No loud declarations of his next big move. Instead, he's quietly building, learning, training, improving. 3. Mature masculinity. That silence, that discipline whispers louder than any boast ever. Cowled women may not consciously unearn it, but they feel it. Evolutionary psychology explains. Thathamans are drawn to those who exhibit campaigns, control, and purpose. Traits that signal safety, stability, and strong leadership. When she sees a man who isn't thrown off by chaos, who isn't constantly reacting, but rather choosing his battles and carving his own lane. She begins to admire him, not for his looks or his charm, but for the way heckers himself as if he doesn't need to seem to be significant. His presence, so doesn't beg for attention, earns it. And that's rare, especially in a world where most people broadcast every step off their journey. He doesn't need permission to exist with purpose. And that more than anything creates an unspoken allure, because in a society full of men waiting to be told what to do next, he's already moving quietly, powerfully, and unshakably towards something greater. Number 3. His silent confidence. He doesn't need to prove anything anymore. Not to society. Not to women, and certainly not to himself. That's because he's reached a level of self-awareness and maturity that most men never attain. He's met a peace with who he is. And that peace beckons a quiet strength that doesn't need to shout for attention. His silences and the absence of power. It's that presence of control. In a world where people often equate loudness with confidence, his calm presence disrupts the noise. He doesn't dominate a room with volume, but with energy, grounded, unshakable, and deeply masculine. Confidence without arrogance is one of rarest traits in a man. It speaks of experience, of wounds that have been healed, of lessons learned to the heart way. This kind of man doesn't chase validation because he no longer sees it as currency. And when a younger woman senses that, when she feels the steadiness of a man who knows his worth without advertising it, she feels drawn. And often without understanding why. It's not about charm in the traditional sense. It's not trying to entertain or impress. It's about something far more magnetic. Power without noise. This is the essence of what psychologists refer to as secure masculinity. A state in which a man is rooted in his identity, no longer defines himself by for mysterious pastoral success or approval. Younger women, especially those tired of boys trying to play men, instinctively recognize this energy. Safe, but it's also exciting. It's mature, but not dull. It challenges them to rise higher. Unlike performative masculinity, wicker release on showmanship, this quiet-powered man's nothing but commands respect. And that's why she watches him, because his silence says more than words ever can. He doesn't have to prove the strong. He's strong. He doesn't explain who he is. Who he is by how carries himself and how he reacts or cues us not to. That's the kind of off-presence that lingers long after he's left the room. Number 4, his master over loneliness. He doesn't fear being alone. He chooses it. And that choice to stand come from bitterness or social rejection, but from a deep-seated sense of self-reliance. This is where these Sigma male stands apart from the crowd, in a world that often equates value with visibility and connection with Constantine text shock. The Sigma male moves in quiet defiance. He's not addicted to attention. He doesn't seek validations through likes, flirty texts, or binds surrounded by people. In fact, he finds clarity in solitude and strength insolence. This kind of man disrupts thinner malleum of attraction. Younger women who are used to more predictable male behaviors. Very accustomed to men who rush to impress, who rely on charm as a crutch, and who fear being alone because it might suggest they're unwanted. But the Sigma isn't playing that game, he playing his own. He walks through life with the calm confidence of someone who doesn't need to prove his worth to anyone. And that makes him even more magnetic. Psychologically, solitude is often linked to emotional maturity and self-actualization. According to Maslow's hierarchy of needs, the Sigma has already met his foundational needs: security, belonging, esteem, and now he seeks something more meaningful: purpose, mastery, and peace. That inner compulsiveness radiates outward in it. Doesn't go unnoticed, especially by women. To her, his silence is no emptiness. It's depth. His lack offer suit isn't disinterest. It's discipline. And his refusal to conform to the usual dating script triggers curiosity instead of frustration. Why doesn't he chase? Why doesn't he flatter 5 rare vulnerable with the usual compliments? Why do absence feel more powerful than another man's presence? The truth is this: Sigma doesn't need to convince anyone of fist value. His restraint becomes its own kind of charisma, flips the usual dynamic. She starts to lean in. She begins to wonder what he's thinking, what his world looks like, and how she might become a part of it. It's not about mind games. It's about authenticity. And in that stillness, where most people grow anxious, this Sigma male grows stronger. While others chase attention, he cultivates meaning. And that's exactly what makes Hyman forgettable. Number 5, his mysterious detachment. He speaks less, observes more, and when he finally says something, it cuts through the noise like a sharp blade through silk. That is Sigma male and enigma. In a world obsessed with being seen, heard, and constantly validated. While most men try to impress women with flashy stories, exaggerated confidence, or shallow charisma, the Sigma operates testantly. He doesn't talk to fill silence or perform for attention. His silence is statement. And paradoxically, the less he shares, the more women want to know. This isn't a game of manipulation. It's the natural pull of mystery. Psychologically, humans drawn to puzzles crave a solution. So when a Sigma male doesn't lay his life out like an open book, it triggers curiosity. A special line: younger women who are used to dealing with men who reveal everything up front. An attempt to win affection. Sigma's unreadable nature is confusion. It's a quiet challenge. Key saying without words: you don't get to meow that easily. And that's addictive. Neuroscience shows the anticipation triggers the brain's reward system even more than the reward itself. So when a woman interacts with a Sigma male, every glance, every word, and a very subtle shift becomes a clue in a bigger mystery. She's hooked. Not because he's loud or flashy, but because he's different, stoic, self-contained, and unaffected by the usual games. His presence alone changes the atmosphere. It's not about dominating the room as about grounding it. Sigma males don't need approval to feel valid, and that independence makes them attractive in a primal, hard to explain way. Their vibe says, I don't need you. I choose you. For women, especially those navigating a world full of superficial attention seekers, that energy is both refreshing to captivating. It's not that they want to conquer the sigma. It's that they want to him, and understanding someone wash you doesn't broadcast his emotions. Or 6. Purpose-driven life intentions becomes a kind of emotional adventure. Every word he finally speaks, meaning every silence feels intentional. And that's the secret. Sigma males don't try to be mysterious. They simply live with a level of depth and self-assurance that mysterious by nature. And for a younger woman, kind of authentic complexity is so resistible. Number 6. He's soon availability. He's not always around. And that's not an accident. It's a reflection of a man who values solitude, self-mastery. He doesn't constantly text, not because he's playing hard toy, but because his life is already full with purpose, discipline, and relentless pursuit of his goals. Sigma mollies operate on a different wavelength. They don't seek validation through detention, and they certainly don't build their identity around constant communication. His absence isn't a strategy to lure her in, simply byproduct of off being deeply engaged with his own journey. His time is not up for grabs. It's deliberate, invested in growth, reflection, actions that align with this internal compass. This level of independence is uncommon, and it naturally creates a psychological lantry known as the scarcity effect. People value what's rare. In a world of instant messaging and constant availability, his distance feels unfamiliar, even thrilling. It makes her pause and ask that question alone can spark a magnetic pull. Not because he's trying to impress, but because he's already impressed with himself. And this, the dynamic women especially he sues to being pursued or placed on a pedestal, start to see him differently. He's not needy. He's not chasing. He's not trying to win. Harver. He's simply existing in his power. And that power doesn't beg. It attracts. Psychologically, humans are drawn to a hat they can't immediately have. And this man, by being deeply rooted in his own path, becomes a quiet mystery. She begins to imagine what would it feel like to actually earn a place in his life, to matter to a man who doesn't relent me for validation, comfort, or direction, but who might choose me anyway. That idea alone can be more compelling than any smooth line or grand gesture. Because when a woman senses that his world won't collapse with her, but he's still willing to make space for her, she realizes she's not being used. She's being chosen. And 7. Discreet dominance ethics. The rarest feeling of all in today's emotionally chaotic dating scene. In the end, he's not trying to prove anything to anyone. He's just living. And in doing so, he become. People cancel but try to understand, follow, and fall for. Number 7. His boundaries are unshakable. She tests him not back. She's cruel or manipulative, but bet 'cause something deep within her psyche can't bless her too. It's not always a conscious decision. Rather, it's an instinct rooted in evolution arypica. Women often without Trializing it may challenge a man's emotional boundaries to gauge his strength, leadership, and self-respect. Will he bend to please? Will he lose himself to keep her? Will he chase when she pulls away? These tests aren't about drama. They're about discernment. A. Manuel reacts impulsively by arguing, pleading, or raising his voice signals emotional instability. But the sigma male, he doesn't take the bait. Potatoes. Engage in shouting matches or try to win her approval. Instead, Habu comes. Still. He withdraws not in weakness but in quiet power, because to him disrespect isn't something to bet abetted. It's a boundary that speaks Volus, and his response isn't to retaliate but to retreat with dignity. This calculated detachment is a hallmark of the sigma male's emotional discipline. He knows his worth and refuses to beg for validation. Ironically, this is often the moment Chef feels the deepest pull toward him. His allowance, his restraint, his unwavered gamut to his peace. All of it commands respect in a way words never could. It's not that she fully understands why his absence hits harder than any argument. It's that his behavior taps into something primal. She realizes she can't control him. And strangely, she admires that, because in a world where most men crumble under pressure, he remains unshaken. And Willie Test may have been unconscious, Felizan. He teaches her about self-worth, boundaries, and the strength of quiet. Confidence is unforgettable. Number 8, his rare masculine energy. Older sigma males don't compete with younger men because they've long outgrown the need for validation, while others are 8. Emotional stability, still battling to prove dominance or ratching one another. The mature sigma stands still, calm, grounded, and unaffected. His masculinity isn't a performance. It's not something he wears like a costume or announces with bravado. Something he embodies. You can see I-10. How he sits with effortless poise. How he listens without interrupting, and how he remains composed when others won't explode. This quiet confidence is a psychological force known as non-reactivity, often linked to higher emotional intelligence and self-awareness. These men have been through enough life storms to realize a real power isn't loud, silent, controlled, and deeply rooted. Younger men might flex, boast, or chase status, but the older sigma knows his presence speaks louder than any words. Women notice it not because he's flaunting anything, but because his energy fills the room without him trying. It's calidemitted presence, and it's magnetic. This is what makes the older sigma stand out. Not his attempts to dominate, Booth's ability to be fully himself without apology or need for applause. That is the kind of power that can't be faked. The truth is, he's not trying to attract union. It's building his legacy. And strangely enough, that's exactly what makes him irresistible. The older sigma male lives with intention, directing his energy toward things that compound over final thoughts. Time, his health, his finances, his knowledge, and his inner peace. In a world addicted to instant gratification, his discipline is a quiet rebellion. He doesn't crave the spotlight. He doesn't chase social validation or temporary fillings. Instead, he's laying bricks for a future only a few can envision. And that's where the paradox begins. He's some emotionally unavailable yet. Endless light is detached yet. Unforgettable. He doesn't play games to be mysterious. His mysterious is simply the byproduct of flying beyond the noise. Research and evolutionary psychology even shows that traits like autonomy, self-sufficiency, and purpose-driven living are highly attractive, especially to women who seek emotional depth and stability. He's no doubt they're adapting to what's trending. He's refining what's timeless. His values, his discipline, and his calm presence. So when younger women enter his orbit, it's not because he chaste them. It's because they recognize something rare, something stable, something magnetic. He's not part of their world. They're stepping into his. Stay evolving.